Joining us now, Jeremy Rosenthal. He's a defense attorney. Talking a little bit today, we're going to discuss Gen Z, more than twice as likely to drive high. Now, Jeremy, I've heard this before, that especially in places where you have quick access to THC-type products, that they're having a problem with emergency rooms in places like Denver, for example. So this doesn't surprise me at all.
This is a pretty surprising report. I mean, for no other reason than these are self-reporting people who are saying, yeah, I've driven high. And I think, and look, when I was a prosecutor, they asked, that we had a training session of all the Brady prosecutors, and they asked, who here has never driven when you shouldn't have? But that's not the question that was asked these kids. It was, who has driven high in the last 30 days? That's the really alarming part of this report.
And was it just geared toward folks who live in states where it's legalized, or was it overall?
My understanding, I can't speak exactly to the report. I think this was a Colorado Department of Transportation report. So they're looking at their place, but don't worry. I mean, I don't think there's any drugs or marijuana in the Metroplex, so I think we're fine here, right?
Yeah, good. Well, yeah, for sure.
That's absolutely true. No questions asked. Jeremy, when you see this, what do you do? Let's say you go back to your days as a prosecutor.
Right.
How first of all, if you pull somebody, how do you test for whether somebody's high or not?
That's the trick. Alcohol is obviously a lot more common, and I think it will be, and maybe it always will be. Most of the field sobriety tests, the standardized field sobriety tests, are geared towards detecting alcohol. So that part is fairly easy to train police on. You have much less police officers that are trained as what are called drug recognition experts. And it's a real trick, and physiologically it's difficult. It's just really hard to for them to be able to differentiate that, and it can be confusing. Somebody may get pulled over. There may not be a drug recognition expert that's on the shift that night. So it's a lot trickier to diagnose. That's for sure. What's
a bigger problem, driving drunk in that age group, or high, for example?
Well, it sounds like it's high. I guess based on this report, and there's misinformation about a lot of these things, and I'll tell you. DWI is probably the most common case that a criminal defense lawyer handles. I mean, it's just jokingly call them one of the 4 basic food groups of the types of cases that sort of come in. And to your question, I mean, it's just rarer to have a marijuana case. That said, it is becoming more and more common. One thing in Texas that's specific is, and I don't know if this is policy driven or not, but if they test the blood, if the blood comes back over 0.08, they're not going to test it for other components, THC, methamphetamine, or anything else. And that's probably a budgetary thing. So you probably have some folks who are junked up on different stuff that also just happen to test 0.08. We just don't know it. It's when they come back, and a lot of times you'll see a case where a police officer will pull somebody over, and this is either a really weird medical emergency, or you are junked up on something. And it can be kind of intimidating to that police officer to try to diagnose that.
We have so many questions for Jeremy Rosenthal right now.
Jeremy, I have one for you, and I would like to help the police make it easier on them as to identify if they're high or if they're drunk. One way you could do that is hand the driver a Taco Bell sack. If he rips into it, if he tears that sucker apart, he's high.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, well, you also that's one of those questions. You're not allowed to bait them, too much. That could be a little aggressive, right? But yeah,
that's the TBT test. I mean, a lot of people have heard of that, I'm sure.
TBT. There you go. I love it. Yeah.
All right. So, bottom line is, we got a lot of kids driving high. How do you convince them not to do that?
So one of the things in Colorado that I saw that they were doing is they're actually getting the dispensaries to sort of try to participate in public information about it. And one of the things, kind of the question that was to the question earlier, is, and again, talking about some of the information and misinformation, I'll tell you this, and this is not going to be popular, but I've seen empirically validated studies that show that driving with marijuana in your system is safer than driving with alcohol in your system. Now, that's not to say it's safe, and that's not to say that you can't get high.
Hang on just a second. Monty, sit down.
He is
I
so
need you over there
excited.
going, yes, yes. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Well, but the numbers go that you are ridiculously unsafe to drive when you're combining alcohol and marijuana. So again, it's a balance. But then you get a lot of people out there who are saying, well, this stuff is just fine. And DWI is defined in Texas as anything that you ingest into your body, any substance, combination of substances, drugs or alcohol, that cause you to not have the normal use of your mental or physical faculty. In theory, I can ask a jury, who here wants me driving without my coffee in the morning?
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
So there are some substances that can kind of help. Now, again, to be clear, that's just one of those tricky curveballs, but there's a lot of misinformation out there, and
Okay.
who knows what the Gen Zers are pumping into their brain with the phones and the
Right.
Instagram and the TikTok and all that stuff.
Right. All right, defense attorney Jeremy Rosenthal. Jeremy, we'll definitely have you back. Thanks for the information. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.